This is day 354, the birthplace of ideas. When I was a young boy, my father was deeply interested in amateur astronomy. We spent many late nights gazing up into the heavens with our homemade telescopes. One moment in particular that I remember was looking at what is known as the Horsehead Nebula. It is named this way because part of the formation looks vaguely like a horse head. Our telescope could not reveal the spectacle you will see in a magazine or a book, but we could make out the faint glow and clustered stars that shaped the nebula. My father told me that this was the birthplace of stars. The concept that there is an origin place where stars are formed has stayed with me. For some reason, I began to view my inner mind like that nebula, the birthplace of ideas instead. I picture a cloudy formation in the middle of my head where ideas are slowly forming until one day, when I need inspiration, I can peer inward and draw one out. These last 2 days, I've been reading scientific research on the attempts by data scientists to reproduce the ability of a human to conceive of and craft ideas. It is one thing to ask a large language model to predict the next likely sequence of words. It is another to mimic the human gift for making associative links across memory and time. I read one paper on a technique called knowledge graphing, and the neural network they built looks eerily similar to that nebula of stars I saw as a child. Yesterday, I found myself contemplating the passage of seconds. Often we say things like, "Time is really flying today," or we exclaim, "Where has all the time gone?" Or, "I need to make more time for this." The reality is that these statements are not quite right. Time does not shrink or grow. Time simply is, and the seconds are consistent enough for our purposes. Time is a fascinating human construction, and the genesis of timekeeping as a concept is a great study in how we create associations across years and context, then turn those links into ideas. The road that brought quartz into our pockets or on our wrists began with a simple observation at a Paris laboratory. In 1880, Jacques and Pierre Curie noticed that certain crystals produced a tiny electric charge when pressed, and that a charge would make those same crystals flex and vibrate. This piezoelectric effect sat at the crossroads of physics and materials, an elegant bridge between force and current. It did not keep time yet, but it offered a promise. If a crystal could be coaxed to vibrate in a steady way, perhaps it could become a metronome that never tired. For decades later, a physicist named Walter Guyton Katy cut quartz into precise shapes and built an electronic circuit that encouraged the crystal to sing at a stable pitch. This was around 1921. The idea migrated almost immediately into the world of radio, where stability matters a great deal. A transmitter that drifts in frequency causes confusion. A crystal that holds steady brings order to the airwaves. Here we can see the pattern that so often drives human progress. Work in one field provides a lever in another. A problem from radio suggests a solution for time. In 1927, Warren Marrison and J.W. Horton at Bell Telephone Laboratories assembled the first quartz clock. It was not a small or beautiful, but it was steady. The crystal's resonance, sustained by an electronic oscillator, beat out seconds with a discipline that mechanical pendulums and balance wheels could not match. Accuracy migrated from swinging weights and coiled springs to a quiet sliver of stone that pulsed in place. Much later, engineers discovered a practical frequency for watches. If a crystal resonates at 32,768 cycles per second, then a simple series of electronic dividers can half that number again and again until one precise pulse remains. 1 second, click. It is an elegant marriage, a natural resonance in a crystal and an electronic circuit that sustains it, and a digital counter that slices the rhythm into useful time. All this finally arrived on the wrist in 1969 when Seiko released the Astron, the first quartz wristwatch. A century of ideas had traveled from lab benches to telephone racks to jewelry counters. We often say that innovation is invention. More often, Innovation is association. Someone in one place solves a problem that someone in another place needs. The Curie brothers observed, Katie tuned, Marison and Horton counted, Seiko carried the melody into our everyday lives. The crystal did not change, our ability to connect one insight to the next did. This is quite incredible how humans can build upon ideas and slowly perfect concepts until we create remarkable things. I've often wondered why a human can do this in the first place. It seems the root is in how our brain remembers. We tie things together through associations. When I think about memory, I do not picture a filing cabinet. I imagine a web. One thread touches another and a cluster lights up. Our memories are stored in networks, not in isolation. When we recall one moment, nearby associations stir as well. A sound invokes a face, a place summons a feeling, a concept in one field whispers to a pattern in another. This is why creativity often feels like connecting dots. A painter blends two traditions. A scientist borrows a principle from a distant discipline. The mind finds a path across its own landscape, and in the crossing, a new idea takes form. Association is not the only engine at work. We have the curious gift of mental time travel. We can replay the past, revise it, and run the future as a simulation. We test a tool in our imagination before we ever cut the wood. We rehearse a conversation and notice where it went wrong or goes wrong. This prospection is a quiet workshop inside the human mind, and it pairs beautifully with association. The web provides the raw material, the simulation shapes it into something actually useful. Then, of course, there's language. Words let us pin thoughts to the world so others can see them. Once ideas are outside the head, they can be named, debated, refined, and recombined. Language gives us categories and metaphors. It creates shared scaffolding, so a group can climb higher than any one person could alone. The mind associates, the imagination tests, and language invites the community to continue the work. Finally, we should not forget that ideas are stirred by desire and necessity. Problems focus attention, emotions point memory in a certain direction, hunger drove an ancestor to imagine a better tool, urgency pushes a team to consider a different strategy. In this way, motivation acts like gravity on the web of memory. It pulls the right strands into reach, and the idea that follows is not random, it is highly purposeful. What can we do with this understanding when we need ideas on demand? First, we can respect the power of association. The mind makes links, so give it material worth linking. Look beyond your familiar craft, wander into another discipline. Read a few levels above your comfort level. Learn new words and try them out. Each new term is a handle that lets you pick up an unfamiliar shape and set it next to something that you might already know. Second, build a habit of deliberate comparison. When you study something, ask what it resembles. Ask what it is not. Map a pattern from one field to a problem in another field. That is our superpower. We can forage concepts from each other, then combine them into something better. We learn faster together than we will ever learn alone. Third, practice mental simulation. Take the idea that you've assembled and run it forward. Picture the first step, the second step, the place where it might fail. Speak it out loud or write it down. Language will expose gaps and reveal connections that were not obvious before. When I think back to my childhood vision of the Horsehead Nebula in my inner mind, I realize it was not far from the truth. The birthplace of ideas is there, a living cloud of associations that condense into something bright when the conditions are right. We can trust that. We can approach our work with the quiet confidence that we carry a nebula within us, and if we keep learning, looking, and then linking, the next star will certainly form.